Now listen, no matter what card game you end up playing, whether it's Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, Hearthstone, or in this case, Marvel Snap, you eventually have cards that, well, break the game. Whether the devs got too creative with their design or it's just straight power creep, there always comes a time where a new card enters the game and everybody's wondering, how the hell did this even get approved? This, my friends, is the history of broken cards in Marvel Snap. But to take you there, we gotta go all the way back. Oh, the beta days, the wild, wild west of card concepts in Marvel Snap, right? Where the developers would just put together an ability, throw it out there, and we, the players, were the experiment to see if they were broken or not. If you weren't there in the early days, allow me to real quick wind it back, right? None of us knew what the hell we were doing, and we didn't know what half the cards did. And the way that you gain cards in Marvel Snap, it's completely random, and so my luck getting something like Crossbones that I think, hey, that's pretty cool, completely sucks. And then I have something like a Dr. Doom be played on me, and I lose the game, my dignity, 4,000 cubes in my ATM bank pin. And this was really the reality of Marvel Snap in the early days. But I'm getting ahead of myself because the dawn of broken cards in Marvel Snap started with two unbelievably ridiculous cards that everybody had access to. First up was a 1/2 Nova that would give every card on the board plus 2 power. And for the record, this is what everybody was doing in the early days. Almost every single deck had a Nova and a Carnage, and it was just an absolute ridiculous hell that we were living in. This lasted about as long as Jeff the Baby Landshark would in a free adoption. But when you cut off one head, 2 more shall take its place, and that comes in the form of America Chavez and Devil Dinosaur. Now, they've changed Chavez dramatically and Devil Dinosaur to some extent, but back in the beta, you had America Chavez that could thin your deck to create easier combos. It was a 6 cost, guaranteed 10 power to end the game, and a Devil Dinosaur that only cost 3 energy, giving you +2 for every card in your hand. Now, you pretty much know somebody is a beta player if they have 1,000,000 gold splits of America Chavez. She was good before that, but just for some context now, she's a 2 cost, 3 power card with that ability stripped completely, and Devil Dinosaur is a 5 cost 3 who gets +2. So both a little bit different. Devil kind of keeping the same thing going on, but Devil Dinosaur could go up to a 3 cost 12 power card with almost no con. This was pretty much the ideal deck to play in the early days, and oftentimes this was considered one of the best cards in the early game. And we're going to talk about this card later, but we did have some early season passes. In Wave was that first season pass card, and if you didn't get Wave, you were at such a disadvantage to the rest of the player base. But I'm getting ahead of myself, right? Fast forward as players are starting to progress, and in my opinion, still the best days of Snap going through that early collection. We all hit Pool 3, and this is where we end in the beta with 2 other cards that if you play Snap now, these are going to sound ridiculous. Mr. Negative, right now in Marvel Snap, for context, he's a 4 cost, -1 power card because he has such a great effect that, you know, you need a little bit of a con before you play him. Back in the beta, he was a 4/4. This led to players lucky enough to get this card having a massive advantage over the rest of the player base when combined with the other card in Magic. Now, Magic here almost made it to the launch of Marvel Snap. They changed her about a month before release, and she somewhat looks familiar of the Magic you may have known. She was a 5 cost card, but the big difference was you could change Limbo, which would extend the turn. Marvel Snap has 1 to 6 turns. This would make a 7th turn. You could do that on turn 6. So your opponent would be playing out their best play, everything that they had in the kitchen sink, and you could just throw Magic down and be like, great, we're going to play another round. And they were left with pretty much nothing. And this pissed off a lot of people in the player base. And eventually some, Twitter riots happened, and bam, Magic gone, Mr. Negative gone, and well, we enter the live launch of Marvel Snap, and coincidentally, the day my son was born, as I was gearing up for content creation, that was its own animal. But besides the point, even though the beta was the Wild West, and you had cards like a 3 cost Devil Dinosaur, the Magic, the Mr. Negative, beta, there was a small player base, and when launch happened, none of us really expected that millions on millions on millions of players would be playing Marvel Snap. And that did a couple things. You tremendously made the player base bigger, so all these different combos and cards that were out there, so many more combinations were being able to be made in experimentation, leading to a lot more broken decks and cards. But on top of that, all the beta players got to keep their collection, and so we were starting to all have Mr. Negative, all have different cards, and that leads us to a couple that we're going to talk about at the launch of Marvel Snap. Now, the first month, pretty smooth sailing, nothing crazy. Miles Morales for the season pass, maybe Black Panther. But then we enter a couple pull 3 cards like Leader. This was the first card that was hated by the entire Marvel Snap community. Twitter, Reddit, people were not even playing the game were told to hate this card, so they were. Leader was a 6-cost, 4-power card with an on-reveal ability of essentially playing everything that your opponent would play that exact turn. You don't know what to play at the last turn of the game, you idiot? Play Leader! You're down by only 4 points, we'll play Leader. Usually this was enough to get you the win, but we thought this wasn't too broken, and so we decided to combine this, which I still give the credit to Dara J. if you don't know him, to add Leader and Leech together. Now, if you don't know Leech, I thought he was from E.T., like a green alien. He's actually an X-Men, a mutant. Leech here would remove all of the text from all the cards in your hand, leading to one of the most not only broken, but more, I don't know, unfun experiences within the game. You combine them together and you have a card that nukes their entire hand, and or you can copy it. Leader Leech decks were born. But you see, my friends, I was a day 1 beta player myself, and I had a little secret up my sleeve. I had a little social gathering of people that I would let in on one card that would truly be the best card in the game, and it would take a while for people to catch on. And she goes by the name Arrow. Now, Arrow, if you don't know, is my lovely lady in white. This is a character I did not know in Marvel. I know a lot of Marvel things. I didn't know who the hell this was, but I definitely do now, and I think you guys too. Arrow was, to this day, one of my favorite cards in the game because of how busted she used to be. You would play her on a location. She was only 5 costs, and every card your opponent played would move to another location, or to the location that you would play her in, leading to easy games of just getting ahead of your opponent. And then on turn 6, you could simply just play Arrow and whoosh all their cards to another lane, probably one that you're either winning or you're losing by so much that you put their last plays there. And it led to one of the easiest strategies in all of Marvel Snap. Now, these 3 cards I just talked about wouldn't even be considered broken if it wasn't for Death Wave. Now, Death Wave existed back in the beta, but I decided to talk about it now because this was the height of its popularity. Now, Wave, you guys know in the game now, but it set every card to 4 cost, right? So every card was 4 cost, an even experience for you and me. But if you included cards like Death that went down in cost when you destroyed cards, usually it was a pretty tall task to get this Death all the way down to a cheap cost. But with Wave, you destroy a couple cards, you have a 2-cost Death, you would slam a ridiculous power play, playing a 4-cost, 6-cost card and Death. If you don't know what I'm talking about, try to follow along. But fast forward a couple of months, and we have our first and only set of several new cards all landing to the game at the same time. You had cards like Thanos, Super Skrull, Galactus, Shuri enter the game. And I want to pause right here because these 2 cards lasted so much longer than anybody gave them credit for. There was a lot of good cards coming out. Thanos was good then. No one really knew it. But Shuri, back in the good old days, you could play down at any location, and anywhere you played another card would be doubled in power. This led to quickly one of the best decks in the entire game, alongside Galactus in the early days, where you don't have to be winning a location. You don't even have to be playing, really, until the last turns of the game. You throw down Mr. Planet Eater on a location by himself, and bam, you ruin all of the progress that somebody did the entire game, leading to probably just a mass amount of uninstalls. So to recap, in late 2022, as the player base started to get more in their collection, we had Death Wave, we had Leader decks, we had Arrow, Shuri, Galactus, and then Silver Surfer, who came into the game as a 3-cost, 0-power card with the on-reveal of giving all of your other 3-cost cards plus 3 power. Absolutely busted. And in fact, this is what led to OTAs being a regular thing in Marvel Snap. Because you see, in December here, we had all these crazy cards and decks flowing around, and the devs thought, you know, now's a good time to take a month and a half off from the game, and the player base was in absolute shambles. Now, out with 2022 and into 2023, we're going to push the toxicity of 2022 to the past. New year, new me. And that is until, well, the season pass hit, and this jungle cat that nobody knew who the f he was hit the game. But on the bright side, guys, they did nerf Leader. Eventually, they took him from a huge 6'4" down to a 6-3. That really showed us. That really changed the entire game. That lasted one more week until they finally pretty much killed Leader, and the term "they leadered a card" came into existence. But enough of the green big head. Let's talk about Zabu here, which is probably arguably one of the most broken cards that ever came into the game. Now, upon release, guys, he was a 3-cost, 2-power card with an ongoing ability of making 4-cost cards cost not 1, but 2 less cost. Now, I'm going to be honest, this was before the Glenn Jones day, who was the principal balance designer of the game, but somebody around Christmas time got a whole bag of devil's lettuce because this design is absolutely ridiculous. I think in the data mines, he was a card that if you discarded it, another card, he would instead discard, and that was a fun design, but somebody was like, no! We got to show this jungle cat to the world. Let's make him badass. And well, you see right here for the gameplay, we had some 4-cost cards back in the day that if you would make 2 costs, they wouldn't only break the game, but they would cause players to not even be able to play the game. Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man here was a 4-cost that could shut down a lane. In combination with Absorbing Man, you would play that as well. In the next turn, they were locked out from playing anywhere. And so this was before Jeff, before any of those cards existed. You quite literally shut your opponent out from doing anything. The 4-cost cards were never played. Now they were played, but too much. And this was easily, in my opinion, probably the most busted the gameplay felt in the entire game. Who cares about Leader? I just want to be able to play down a card. But Zabu, you see, didn't even last a full month, as it would take him down to a 2-cost, but he would only decrease your cards by 1. And of course, in Marvel Snap fashion, everybody was saying the card's dead, he's terrible, I wasted my money, and that was wrong because Zabu was still too good. And then you combine this with Silver Surfer being insane, they had to take him down as well. And this started kind of a new revolution because the season pass cards up until then kinda, and when I mean kinda, I mean completely sucked, right? Like Black Panther and Miles Morales, they weren't good. But if you got Surfer or Zabu, you were cooking. Now, this led to kind of a great rest in Marvel Snap. There wasn't any clear and obvious OP decks. Leader was nerfed. You had Zabu down from what he was before. But you had cards like Darkhawk out there that everybody wrote off. And then you had cards like Thanos, who I put him high up in a tier list. I thought he had a lot of potential, but nobody could have expected the Mad Titan to be this cracked, right? You combine this guy with Quinjet, Lockjaw, and then you had his stones all together, and you had one of the most broken cards and decks that the game has ever seen. In terms of win rate, to this day, it's the highest win rate deck, I believe, data-wise, because you had the stones that could do things like moving cards anywhere you wanted to. You could have just crazy energy cheating going on. Quinjet would lower cards to 0, making the stones absolutely free. Complete chaos, all combined with the good dog Lockjaw throwing the cards in for free, cycling out big cards. This deck was damn unbeatable, right? Again, I told you, you cut off a head, another one shall take its place. Zabu Surfer gone, Thanos in. Now to fix this, they didn't aim the scopes at Thanos. They focused on Quinjet, making it a minimum of energy 1, and then Lockjaw eventually. But with new season pass cards come new broken opportunities. Now, we had cards like MODOK come out and Nimrod, so kind of a calm couple of months. But then we had 2 cards in the animal season, one of which, Kitty Pryde, who, now, people want to say this was the most busted card. I still think it was probably Zabu in its heyday. But Kitty Pryde didn't even last 24 hours until it not only broke the game in terms of balance, but it broke the game. They had to pull the card because the mechanics were so crazy it couldn't even keep up with the engine capabilities. And we don't have even a lot of footage of it, but here's Mr. Alex Kocha playing it beautifully here. And you can see you used to be able to pull back Kitty Pryde at any time, which made it a really fun card to have. But alongside this, Second Data wanted to keep up the theme of animals that no one knew who the hell they were in the Marvel Universe, and Hit Monkey came out. Now, Hit Monkey, to today's standards, is a pretty garbage card. However, he used to be a 2-0 upon release. Combine that with +3 for every card you played alongside him, and the Mysterio and Hit Monkey deck meta was born. We entered June into High Evo, which kind of had his heyday. I don't think he was completely broken, but definitely had a high play rate. And this was the Glenn Jones era, right? Not a lot of craziness going on here. We had, Legion come out. We had some really cool cards come out. But we entered one last broken era before today, and that is going to be October 2023. Now, just like any season, we would look ahead. I would try to recommend cards that people could save up for to save those tokens and spotlights and all that great stuff. And myself, alongside the rest of the player base, kept toting 1 month. 1 month to save for them all, where Loki entered the game of Marvel Snap. But never mind Loki. How about Mobius M. Mobius? How about Goliath? How about this entire month being absolutely cracked and by far the most broken month that Marvel Snap has had in its entire history? Now, so many people thought Loki was not a good card. So many people, in fact, kind of wrote the card off. They were all focused on Mobius M. Mobius, Triple M, the jet ski rider himself. You had Loki, who was a 3-cost 5-power card, and on reveal, he would replace your entire hand with cards from your opponent's starting deck, and you would give them 1 negative cost. Busted. How about the next new card, Goliath, who was a 6-cost 5-power card, and on reveal, he would destroy every card your opponent would play on that turn. Busted. And then Mobius M. Mobius, who was only 2 cost, 3 power, with an ongoing of your cards can't be increased, and your opponent's cost can't be reduced. You guessed it. Busted. Just to show you how cracked these 3 cards were, and all of them within about a month got touched up in some form or fashion. It took them way too long for Loki. In fact, almost a year plus later. But besides the point, that was the extent of the craziness in late 2023. We did have cards like Elsa Bloodstone come out giving +3. Absolutely broken. You've seen a trend here. They would fix these via OTA, but it led to some chaos. Now, closing out the end of the year, guys, we did have some crazy junk metas like an Annihilus, who was a 5-cost 7-power card, who would send your cards that were 0 or less power over to the opponent's side. Nowadays, it's -1, but this kind of shook Marvel Snap by storm, and it was the only thing we saw up until about the last week of December, where the big tuna came out himself in Blob, who created over 100 power at times in the game. I don't know what it is about Decembers for Marvel Snap, but they always seem to have something like this come out, and then they're like, deuces, we're going on vacation. Now, Blob was a way to address Darkhawk, who kind of continually was the best deck in the game at the time, but he did so a little bit too much. He was a 6-cost 4-power card with an on reveal of merging your entire deck into himself, which led us to 2024. Hooray, we have entered this year, guys, and this video has gone on way longer than I thought, but it was the history of broken cards. I didn't realize just how many we had, and I've left a lot out, might I say, but these were the ones that really shook up. If I've left something out, do drop it down in the comments if you think there's something that definitely deserved a spot in today's video. And I'm going to be honest, 2024 has been a pretty good time. There hasn't been really any card that has come out and completely broken the game, to the fact that they've had to stop everything and nerf it immediately. We've had good decks, we've had bad decks, but there has been one card that we're going to end today's video with that, again, had the same blob effect and or effect with Mobius and Mobius in the October months in Red Hulk, where we read the description in data mines over and over, and we thought, there's just no way. There's just no way. And Marvel Snap Second Dinner said, hold my beer, because this Red Hulk entered the scene, and his power was so crazy that this was quite literally, again, wait for it, the only card we saw in the game for a long time to pass. All right, these were all of the, in my opinion, most broken cards to enter Marvel Snap. And if you guys survived like I did doing all the eras of all these plays, you can truly look back and laugh and appreciate the chaos, what was and what Snap we have today. Like I said in the intro, every single card game has its woes and cards that break the game, and Snap has had a lot. I will give it to them. They do fix these very quickly, not like the old days that we used to have. But it's fun to look back and see just how many cards came out and were broken throughout the game. And I want to know, should any of these return? We've had cards return from the past of their old forms, like Angela, who was here for like 2 weeks before they decided, nope, let's get rid of that again. I don't know. Maybe Arrow? That's my vote, because why not? But anyway, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this look to the past. If you want to see more videos like this, number one, subscribe down below. I'm going to look at my subscription numbers and how much I gained from this video, and it'll help tell me if this is content you guys want to see in Snap as the game gets older. And number 2, let me know by commenting down below as well. Anyway, guys, hopefully you enjoyed the Blast of the Past. I hope for our sakes, the future's bright in terms of balance. And until the next one, happy snapping.